Greetings and salutations. Welcome to Reef Round Aquatics. Today is the 26th of January. I'm going to try to do these videos for you guys as often as possible. I'm trying to reserve that for Sunday so I can help spread some knowledge about some of the tools that we use, some of the problems that we run into, some of the issues, some of the concerns, things like that. I'll try to take my Sundays and do my best to deliver content that you guys could use. So here we go, starting out. Basically, this is a hydrometer, plastic hydrometer. Okay, we've all seen these before. This has got to be the worst device that we could use to measure our salinity. Okay, you could shake it, you could stir it, you could, pre-rinse it, the whole 9 yards. Fact is, there's little air bubbles here that get caught up on this pendulum, and ultimately it affects the reading here. Now, I know a lot of people say, well, just take a pen and stick a pen in there and knock the air bubbles out. No, because there's a check in here too. So when you stick that pen in there, you're displacing the water. It's running out this side right here, right? It's only supposed to be X high, okay? So it's coming out the side right there. When you're messing around with displacement, it's going to run over, and you're not going to have the same amount of water in here that you should. So knocking them off with a pen or pencil isn't going to work. If this is all you've got, it works better than nothing. But if this is all that you got, start getting into some other stuff too, which we'll check back with that. The second device that we use, it's very, very handy, very, very neat, right, is we got these little handheld refractometers, okay? Whether it's Hanna, Milwaukee, you've seen this button format before, we know what's going on with this, okay? This gets zeroed out utilizing clean deionized water, okay? And from that standpoint, very, very accurate. All right. The problem with these is that these little guys have that prism in there and everything else, and in an area where it's well lit, could end up messing up what it's actually reading. Okay. The other thing too is try to keep this in the area wherever it is that you're testing. Try not to bring it in from outside and then bring it inside and try using it there, because a lot of what this thing does is the auto temperature sensing. You're going to be at a disadvantage if this device is hotter or colder than the room that you have it in. The other thing too that makes this a little on the sketchy side is how much do you cover up to get that reading? You know what I'm saying? Like, you had to zero it out and cup it and hold it, right? And then you're going to read it by cupping and holding it. It is what it is, but it's still way more user-friendly and way better than that other plastic hydrometer. Now, we'll move on to the actual refractometer, okay? Right? Everybody's seen these before. Advice. Listen, I've bought this. I have the expensive LED one. I even got one here, and just to prove it, right, one right here. This guy, 150 bucks. Works no differently than the cheap Chinese knockoff. I try using these in my business. However, there's a little bit of a problem. Just the vibration in the truck driving down the road, you're constantly having to calibrate this thing. So it's kind of a hindrance as far as calibration goes, and we'll talk about that in a second. Every single one of these comes with an operator's manual, and every single one of these says to either use RODI water or distilled. Do not do that, okay? I don't care what this thing says. Do not use distilled water or RODI water to calibrate your refractometer. And here's why. See that scale? If you're trying to set for 0, if you're off a little bit one way or the other, right? Again, we're using the best judge, I'm sorry, not the best judge, but the worst judge of anything is our eyes, right? So you could be off a hair one way or the other, just a fraction. But the problem is by the time that fraction actually gets up to 35 parts per thousand, or 1.026 in salinity, by the time you get up to that, it's off. Okay, so what do we use? We use calibration solution. Okay, every kind, any kind. I don't care whose it is. Okay, I don't care. All right, I really honestly don't care whose stuff it is, right? Calibration solution, right? Make sure everybody's the same temperature and use this, because if you're off a fraction at 35 parts per thousand, it's not that bad. You know what I'm saying? So you're way better off to use the calibration solution often as possible. And like I said, I love these things. They're great, especially with the auto temperature sensing and auto temperature correction and everything else. Really, really good device. But really, this device shines when you take care of it and you put it up very, very carefully. Maybe you have to calibrate it every month. You know, as long as it's sitting there, nobody's jostling with it or dropping the case or anything else like that, it'll be perfectly fine. I can't use it for my business because, I mean, again, I'll be taking the time trying to take this thing and, you know, you're pulling it out and you're looking through and you're trying to adjust and you got the little script. No, I can't. Not in my business. I'm kind of pressed for time. I need to be as efficient as possible, and this does not catch the bill for me. So now we'll move on to conductivity meters. Okay, that's basically what this is. Hannah, this is what I carry with me all the time, all day. I love this thing. A lot of people hate these. However, let's go ahead and discuss if the caveats of using this. Like if I just have this laying here on my desk and I go take it up and go use it on one of my aquariums that's 77 degrees, right? The probe here, the temperature probe's got a lot of mass around it. So if this mass is either hotter or colder, I prefer warmer. If this mass is colder than the actual water, you're gonna be standing there for a hot minute waiting for that temperature to come up. Okay, so what I do is this is always kept on me. It's always in my pocket, and when I turn this thing on, even with the cold temperatures, after being in the home for a few minutes, I turn this thing on. I'm somewhere between 79 and 80 degrees, which this will drop temperature really, really fast. It just won't pick it up really, really fast. So, you know, always keep it in it, on you, around you, something else like that, so that temperature is never an issue. Again, if it's been sitting out in your vehicle and you try running in and touching something real quick, not going to work out well. You're going to be there a minute, because you're going to know that, hey, that temperature in that tank's at least 77, 78 degrees, not 67. And that's exactly what this device does. The other caveat to this device is this is a conductivity meter. So we have to understand exactly what it is when you say conductivity. The rate it sends out voltage, and it knows by the return of the voltage the resistance of the water that you're testing. So if you take this device out of the box, calibrate it using the solution that they provide you, and then go test your tank water, you're probably going to be off. All right, hands down, honest to goodness, you're going to be off. Okay, even if temperatures were all the same, you're still going to be off, and I'll explain to you why. Whether it's Brightwell, Red Sea, Instant Ocean, Tropic Marin, They all use different chemicals from all different places with all different grades, all different granule size, all different. It's the reason why we have so many salt manufacturers is because not all salts are created the same. Not saying that they're not created equal, just saying they're not created the same. And because they're using different chemicals with different mineral contents, different trace elements, different minor, different majors, the whole 9 yards, every single one of them has a different resistance, right? You take a meter, stuck it in a bucket of salt water that's made by any one of these manufacturers, you're going to get different numbers, okay? So in understanding that, how do I use something like this more accurate? We'll get into that in a second, but you'll understand here why I love this thing and I live by it. But again, we'll come back to this in a second, okay? Now, for the most accurate, and those of you who keep reefs know exactly what it is I'm about to show. For the most accurate hydrometer, right here. This is a hydrometer. The caveat for this is it needs still water, and the water has to be the water has to be 77 degrees. Okay, so you take this will bob up and down in your water, but you'll see right there. Let's see, I don't know if it'll focus in on it. I might have to put a hand behind it. Let's see here. Yeah, right there, right when it's bobbing, that's 2.7, that's 2.5, right there. It's exactly where you want it to be. Okay, and this is the most accurate. As long as your test water's at 77 degrees and it's not moving, this is the last word. Okay, it's never incorrect unless it's damaged, which at that point you shouldn't be using it anyway. Okay, so again, not the easiest to use, kind of cumbersome, very heavy, not too expensive. Tropic Marin is the one that made this one. But these hydrometers are the best. There's no argument, hands down. This is, you want to talk about getting accurate with your sea salt, this will do it. So we know how this works. So now we'll figure out what the caveat is with this, okay? In any cases where I am using a conductivity meter to be calibrated, I always use a known salt value. So to give you guys an example, whenever I'm using a conductivity meter, Neptune Apex, right? I will make sure that my salt water is exactly 1.026 before I go through the calibration process without a solution using my water. It's exactly how I calibrate this. I will take this device, this one right here, I'll take an entire vat, get it to 77 degrees. Use this to verify, adjust, and correct to get to 1.026, okay? Once I know that my barrel or my vat that I'm mixing salt water is exactly 77 degrees at 1.026, I then put this, when this is at 77 degrees, I then put this through its calibration process, okay? And this device is calibrated for my salt water, which works out because my clients use my water, and it works out all the way around. Now, if I go to somebody's house and they're using Fritz, am I gonna get a different result? Absolutely. Can't trust it. And if it is, then I do carry one of these with me. It's just, I gotta go through the BS of breaking out all the bottles and going through and calibrating that thing, because I know it shook out of calibration in the truck ride down to the customer. So I can't really rely on how to use that. But this is the time saver and a half. Like I said, I keep it on me. Works really, really well. Nothing bad to say about that. It's a lot of these tools, they're not really all that bad, other than this thing. It's really not that bad. It's just how you use them and keeping the use the same all the time, right? Again, even these right here, I mean, this is a Hannah one. There's Milwaukee and Pinpoint and everything else. You can still use those things. But just make sure you use them the same way every single time, you know. And again, go out and get you calibration fluid. Go out and get you calibration fluids. Keep them around. Buy them often. If they get too old, throw them out. Order more, okay? Order new, right? If you want to make sure that this is right, use one of these solutions, right? You use your deionized water, you zero this thing out, all the temperatures match and everything else, and all the temperatures match, and you want to make sure and verify that this is 35 parts per thousand, bang, break out the calibration solution, use it, okay? Works out well for that, works out well for the refractometers, okay? Don't be afraid to calibrate, don't be afraid to double check. That's the reason why I have a whole bunch, because if I'm not happy with one, I'm going to another. If I'm not happy with that, I'll go to another, and so on and so forth. But that's about it for salinity testing. Hopefully I've covered everybody's bases, answered a lot of questions. Maybe some of you guys out there actually have this in a drawer somewhere, regretting your purchase, but after our conversation, you're like, ooh, I didn't know that. But every serious saltwater and reef enthusiast definitely needs to have a hydrometer. It's just, you can't go wrong with a hydrometer. It's going to be right every single time. So as long as you're at 77 degrees, you're good. And when it comes to temperature too, you know, don't rely on, well, this is accurate enough or that's accurate enough. Go out and actually spend the money on something that was specifically meant to do this one job, okay? And invest this, because this needs to work with this, needs to work with this, okay? And doesn't necessarily mind too much working with this, but we need to keep an eye on all of our numbers, all of our parameters, things like that. And I think, like I said, hopefully I made somebody's day, and maybe you'll go ahead and you'll pull that old tester out and start using it again. This is Reef Aquatics. Everybody, be good. Keep on reefing.